welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Einstein. Thank y'all for joining me again today as we go through and we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This, of course, will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, as this will be the first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So, excuse me for potential difference in quality for today. I'm doing this one again from old equipment, meaning my phone, as I'm traveling for the holidays here in the States. So I hope you'll all forgive me for that, but I'm looking forward to seeing how today goes again. So let's go ahead. Let's get right to it. This is November 25th reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. In the process of self-discipline, there are 3 stages: control, purification, and relinquishment. A man begins to discipline himself by controlling those passions which have hitherto controlled him. He resists temptation. He guards himself against all those tendencies to selfish gratifications which are so easy and natural, and which have formerly dominated him. He brings his appetite into subjection and begins to eat as a reasonable and responsible being. Practicing moderation and thoughtfulness in the selection of his food with the object of making his body a pure instrument through which he may live and act as becomes a man, no longer degrading that body by pandering to gustatory pleasure. He puts a check upon his tongue, his temper, and in fact, his every animal desire and tendency. There is in the heart of every man and woman a selfless center. Now, first and foremost, that's a fantastic reading. I love it. Absolutely love the subject matter on this one. And this is really about the purification process and the willingness we have to go, or with the willingness we have to go to any lengths to really embody what this spiritual living is about. Right? We're not talking about just eating. We're talking about our tongues, our thoughts, our mindless, self-centered pursuit of desire and satisfaction. There's a lot that goes into this topic. There's a lot that really kind of needs to be said about it, honestly. And a lot of things we have to face about ourselves when we get into this topic, right? So let's go through it. In the process of self-discipline, there are 3 stages: control, purification, and relinquishment. The control is stopping the behavior. The purification is understanding it. And the relinquishment is ridding yourself of it as you understand the reasons why you do it, right? That's it in a nutshell, at least. That's pretty simplified, I guess, but I do believe that's what it boils down to. So, and that's just the process of self-discipline. There's a lot that goes into these things. But he goes on to the main body of the paragraph with: a man begins to discipline himself by controlling those passions which have hitherto controlled him. He resists temptation. Actually, we'll stop there. A man begins to discipline himself by controlling those passions which have hitherto controlled him. This was a very hard thing for me to face, was the fact that those things that I had so often thought I controlled, really at the end of the day did control me. At the end of the day, they were what I served, or my selfish and self-centered ambitions and desires. Passions is what he calls them. Our emotional passions, physical desires, things like that. I was a slave to those things. I served those things, whether I knew it or not, and they controlled me every day, every moment of every day. I didn't realize how much it was a factor in my life. He says next, he resists temptation and guards himself against all those tendencies to selfish gratifications which are so easy and natural and which have formerly dominated him. So, the animal nature of the body that we captain is to be just completely self-centered and selfish and thinking about only itself, thinking about only what it needs, what it wants in those immediate moments. It's a beast of very selfish and self-centered gratification. And that's how we lived for a long time. That's how I lived for a long time. But we have to begin to resist those temptations, to take a look at what's actually behind it and what's driving these things. We have to resist temptation and guard ourselves against all those tendencies to selfish gratification. It's not easy, but it can be done. And this is just one part of it. The part that I've been attacking the most in my life recently, honestly, is he brings his appetite into subjection and begins to eat as a reasonable and responsible being, practicing moderation and thoughtfulness in the selection of his food. I mean, this is something that everybody in this society, in Western society, should really take it into effect. What are we putting into ourselves and why? Because it tastes good, because it's sweet, because it gives us a shot of dopamine. Like, what is the actual reasoning for what we're eating? Is it healthy? What a question to ask, right? Like, people, and I'm not talking about becoming a doctor of medicine and nutritionist just to understand these things, but some basic thoughts, some basic changes. How processed is the food you eat and how regularly do you eat it? That makes a difference. So bringing our appetite into subjection, and we eat as a responsible and reasonable being. Not overeating, not eating tons of food, not acting like it was the first and last meal we'll ever have. Practicing thoughtfulness and selection in the selection of his food with the object of making his body a pure instrument through which he may live and act as becomes a man, and no longer degrading that body by pandering to gustatory pleasure. So, there's the goal we're working towards, making our bodies an pure instrument through which we may live and act as becomes a man, right? What we're putting into ourselves really does have an effect on how we behave and what we do and what we pursue. It's kind of an amazing thought to think about, and people don't realize how much of an impact it honest and truly has, I don't think. But it really does. It affects how you think about things. It affects your impulses. It affects your desires. It affects so much stuff about your life. Eating and our appetites for things is something to take a hard look at. Stop degrading the body by pandering to gustatory pleasure. What a statement that is. Honestly, it's probably because it's the truth that it strikes me so. But now the last line of the main body, he says, he puts a check upon his tongue, his temper, and in fact every animal desire and tendency. All of our emotional passions and exaggerations and our physical desires, we have to put a check on these things. We have to keep it in line or rein them in, right? Because if they don't, they will destroy us. We will become slaves to them and serve them unendingly until we die. We have to get these things under control. We have to practice this self-discipline concept that he opened with. This has to be a primary objective for us. And honestly, it's through self-discipline that freedom is found. Discipline is the yoke of the free man. We talked about that yesterday. I believe that to be true today. So, and then I like the statement he closes with here. There is, in the heart of every man and woman, A selfless center. A selfless center. A truly godlike dimension of our spirit lies within us. When we take out the animal instincts, when we take out the intellectual opinions, and we sit with our spirit only, that which is true and eternal, there is a selfless center. So, well, all right. Thank y'all so much for joining me again, and thank you for sticking with me. I do greatly appreciate it. So, I will be looking forward to seeing how the last couple of days of November turn out, and I hope y'all are too. So, until next time, thanks.